My name's Boydlee. I do have a last name. Nobody really uses it anymore. I'm just kind of known by a first name for some weird reason, probably because it is a strange name. Just a little bit about me. I'm obviously originally from Australia. I run a digital agency in Norwich in England now. Former .NET developer, but don't hold it against me. And the last few years I've been basically just writing mobile applications. So I used to work in the enterprise a lot. I worked for banks, I worked for government departments, I worked for large media outlets. I work for the kind of guys that don't even really allow JavaScript in their code bases at all. Sort of 5 or 6 years ago, we were developing web apps and enterprise apps. JavaScript was just, you're not even allowed to put it in there. So basically, a few years ago, I started doing Titanium mobile development, which is, I've authored a few books in that. And that was kind of the moment for me after using JavaScript thoroughly in Titanium, after a couple of weeks of using that, really starting to fall in love with JavaScript. And I think it was really, that for me was what rekindled my love of programming, was JavaScript. So today though, I'm here to talk about deployed. Has anybody used deployed before? Heard of it? No? Everybody's heard of Node.js and Mongo though, right? So basically what deployed is in a nutshell, it's a system, a package that's built on top of Node.js, built on top of MongoDB, and it allows you to basically design and create APIs in the browser. It's super easy, it's free, it's open source, you can go onto GitHub, you can get the code, you can play with it, you can extend it with other Node.js modules, all that sort of stuff. So I'm assuming most people here develop against APIs of some description, yes? So how many people have been in a situation where they're basically, you're starting a project, perhaps you're the front-end developer, you're the mobile developer, whatever, but you're waiting on somebody else to start and build the API until you can actually complete your work or even get started. The good thing with deployed is that you can use it to actually design out APIs. So even if you're waiting on somebody else to build it, and it may be in something else, it could be in .NET or PHP or Node or whatever it is, you can actually go and design the API and get started and start building whatever you're doing against it. Yeah, so built on Node.js, MongoDB, so you know it's fast, you know it's scalable, it's all JavaScript. Comes with a full dashboard system to allow you to create and manage collections, the events, insert and edit data records, all that sort of stuff. It's got some really cool bits and pieces. We'll do a bit of a demo at the end. It's all sort of a demo on the local host, so I think we should be all right as far as that goes. And it's all about creating RESTful APIs through design. So, it's a very easy system. The dashboard looks kind of like this. It allows you to basically create a collection, the get, post, put, delete, all those things are already there, all those REST calls are there, you can immediately hit them, you can add events to get them, against them, all sorts of stuff. So the way it works is it's scripted logic through events. So every single REST call that you've got, a method, has its own little JavaScript box, for want of a better word. It allows you to intercept calls to the system and inject your own business logic code into it. So essentially, what you can do is create a collection which could be something like speakers for Scotland.js. And then within that, we can interject scripts and anything you can do in JavaScript, you can basically pass back as part of the API. So the events logic screen, something like this. This is just a screenshot of it running on my local host here. You can see that what we've done there, it's a bit hard to see actually, but what we've done there is just extended the collection that is within the system and added a date time to it, and that gets passed back as part of the API. You can access other collections and join results, just like you would if you were writing it against any other sort of SQL database. So if you have two collections, you can access data from one collection within another collection. You can do all sorts of stuff. And they have a built-in library called DPD. Whenever you create a collection or you update it or you add scripted logic or whatever, that dpd.js file is regenerated by the system so that you can actually use that within your mobile projects or your web projects or whatever it is you're doing to easily access the API. So you don't have to go building the manual REST calls against this stuff if you don't want to. It is possible to do that, but you don't have to. So accessing collections via this dpd in JS, you can do that both inside deployed itself, and you can do it outside. So you can use dpd.js in the browser or in a mobile phone, or you can actually use the same library within deployed itself to access internal collections and stuff. This will make a lot more sense when we do a bit of a demo at the end. It's got full user login, user logout, creation support out of the box. There's built-in user collections. You can write your own Node.js modules and extend the system with that. There's some basic existing ones already you can download for free. There's an email one, for example's sake. You can create an email collection type, and that basically you can use that to send emails out via SMTP through the system. The events, again, there's certain calls built into it. So you can actually restrict access to APIs. So if you have an API called speakers, it's got a get and a post and a put and a delete, perhaps you're going to make this API public. You only want public to be able to access the get API of it. You can throw cancel commands into the events tab for each one, so that essentially you can block access to, say, delete, post, put, whatever it happens to be, and only allow access to get. And as well as throwing errors and cancellations, you can do all sorts of other stuff with it. We can have a look at a few of these, but protect is a good one. If you've got an API collection and you've got a put event, you don't want people updating the ID perhaps of the record, or the first name, or whatever it happens to be. You can protect fields just with that one function. Previous object contains the previous item value, so you can get back on your API call, you can actually get back what the value of something was both before and after you changed it. And all sorts of other stuff. So changed informs if a property was updated. Hide, if you have an ID or a date of birth is a good one. I did a system recently where the date of birth had to be protected because it was for a system for children. So you can hide and protect certain fields so that they can't be accessible externally, but you can still use them internally within the system. And error if, so you can throw errors in it. You can say error if this user is the timestamp here is greater than an hour old. You can throw an error, something like that. So you can use Node.js modules to perform tasks that deployed doesn't already do. I was just saying before, there's a number out there already for sending email. There's also a bunch of other stuff, getting files from Amazon S3, for example's sake. There's a whole stack of them on the Deployed's website. You can go down there and have a look. And they're really useful. But at the end of the day, the system's extensible. So if you've got Node.js modules that you're already using, or you want to plug something in, you can write them. You can extend the deployed system. You can access it from within the events dashboard. You can do whatever you like, really. And yeah, so they're all based on Node. So you can reuse any Node.js package with NPM if you want to. So what's it good for? Last year, we were asked to build a system for a startup company. And this startup company is essentially creating a whole stack of educational games. So these are all games built in Unity 3D. They work across a variety of mobile platforms. And what they're attempting to do is build sort of fun education stuff that still takes a lot of the, takes analytics and things from what the kids are doing as they're playing these games and feeds those results back into the system. Now, as part of it, we had to build a system that was essentially able to create APIs on the fly. So we didn't know in the future whether some of these games these guys were going to create had, new analytics they wanted to capture, because they're all quite different. They're all based on different subjects which have different requirements. So we had to essentially ensure that whatever system we chose was able to be extended easily while it was live and on the fly. It had to be highly scalable and have high availability. Again, we wanted to make sure that it didn't matter if there were 10,000 analytics calls being pushed into our system every minute. We had to ensure that that would work. We had no idea how far these guys were going to scale, how many people would be using the system at the same time, all that sort of stuff. So the fact that it was built on top of Node.js and Mongo, which are proven open source technologies to do this, was a big bonus for us. Could easily be integrated into both web and mobile. The DPD.js library, you just throw it into a web page, basically. It's a nice object. You can access any of the collections just using simple API calls. That was quite easy. They have a mobile script version you can use in, say, PhoneGap or something like that. They also have a Titanium mobile version. Fully supports socket I/O, so we actually haven't integrated that yet, but it fully supports sockets, so you can use that if you like. And above all, it had to be cheap. So obviously this client's a startup, they don't have lots of money. They specifically don't have lots of money to go spending on Oracle servers, .NET servers, SQL Server licenses, all this kind of stuff. We wanted to keep it open source. We wanted to keep it nice and simple. We wanted something we could get the code to and extend if we had to. And we did that by using deployed and cloud servers. I don't really know how many people here have been developing for longer than, say, 10 years or so, but yeah, a few. Cloud server technology, the last few years, it's just amazing. This is the kind of stuff that, even 6 or 7 years ago, we couldn't even imagine doing without tons of money. The fact that you can now go onto Amazon or Rackspace, which is the one we use, or a bunch of others, create half a dozen servers, stick a load balancer in front of them, and then just let them run within the space of 10 minutes, I mean, that's just amazing. And for startups like this, where they don't know how quickly they're going to scale, they don't know how many users they're going to get, all that sort of stuff, it was just a no-brainer for us. So we built it using Linux cloud servers via Rackspace. For deployed, we stuck the MongoDB onto its own server instance, which meant that we could actually run deployed individually as it was on any number of servers and put a load balancer in front of that, and away it went. If one of those servers was to go down, to crash, hardware fault, whatever it happened to be, we knew that the system would keep running. And long term, a lot of the data that we stored in it for analytics, we would pull out on a regular basis and store in MySQL or relational cloud database, just so that we could run commands across it without killing our primary API. It's not perfect. There are obstacles when using it that you do have to overcome. The user authentication system in it is still a little bit weak, so we built a token-based auth system in deployed. We extended the scripts that they've got to ensure that it stays up using forever. Just made them a little bit better, frankly. Ensured that when the server started up, that everything was running, everything was going, it wasn't going to fall over. Long-running API calls in deployed can actually use significant temporary memory. So you don't run it on any cloud server, any server at all with less than a gig of RAM. We tried initially to run it on a very small micro server with about 512 meg, and we were wondering for a couple of weeks why it kept crashing for us. It was just running out of memory and dying. It was as simple as that. We were trying to find a technical solution to it. The solution at the end of the day was give it more RAM, and it works perfectly. IE8, for the second time today, gets bagged out. Essentially, anyone that's used IE, we didn't support IE6 and 7 out the bat, so we were lucky from that regard. IE8 and 9, they don't, out of the box, support cross-domain scripts. Everything gets blocked. So with a system like this, where regardless of whether the JavaScript for DPD is on the API server or it happens to be on the client, doesn't matter. Cross-domain scripting, IE would block everything. So this was the one instance. IE10 works fine, but for IE8, we had to basically build a proxy object just to ensure that our calls got through. A bit unfortunate. Didn't have that problem, obviously, with any of the mobile apps and things that we were building. That stuff worked fine. It was just the website portal that we built to sort of house the user management and creation of it, IE8. But in general, the node modules allow you to easily overcome any obstacles. You know, just the simple fact that we can install an email module and from within deployed go, well, if this happens, send such and such an email. If this happens, send such and such an email. And leave that business logic in our backend as opposed to having to write some sort of intermediate node script or PHP script or whatever it happens to be just to shoot some emails out. And the end result was we had a system that could handle thousands of API calls per hour, and it does today. They have a number of games running across it, hundreds of users. Their games are in the top 20 of the App Store's education section. We were able to easily build it into a responsive website, and we will be building an app to come using deployed as well, and Titanium Mobile. This is basically what it looks like. So all this data here is being fed. I think we're using Angular.js for this. There's some examples of that on their website. And yeah, all of this is being fed from our deployed API servers into a website built with Angular. And I think there's a bit of Laravel PHP on some of that stuff as well. But even if it's not your first choice for production systems, and it is quite new, it's quite raw, that's fine. It is an amazingly quick way to build out APIs for anything, websites, mobile apps, whatever you happen to be doing. It's super fast, it's free, you can download it today, and for prototyping, it is a brilliant tool. So plenty of sample apps at deployed, show you what you can do with the system, that Angular.js integration, whatever it happens to be. So the GitHub link's there, go and have a look at it, it's well worth the effort. So what we'll do is, to give you a better example of how it works, I'm gonna try and do a demo. We'll see if it works and doesn't crash. It should be nice. So basically, well, to save a bit of time here, I've already downloaded deployed from the server. I've already unzipped it and whatever else and installed it on my system. It's really easy to do locally. You just download the package for Macs or Windows or whatever it happens to be, and run the package installer, and you can install it locally. Installing on a server is just as easy. There's a few 10-line instructions on how to install it on a Linux server or whatever it happens to be, and get it running using forever scripts and stuff like that. So it's a really simple process. So I've already installed it. So to create the object's called DPD that it sticks into the system. So in order to create a new deployed server on our local host, it's as easy as DPD create, I'll say Scotland.js. What have I done here? I swear this worked 5 minutes ago. There we go. Not sure what was going on there. I think I might have been a root. So DPD create Scotland.js. That's created our deployed instance on the system, created a file, a folder with all the files that we require in it, in that location, that project's location. So starting this deployed server up is as simple as going change directory Scotland.js. That's our deployed instance name, DPD, and it started. By default, it runs on port 2403. I think there's a command now you can change whatever port you want it to run on. If you want it to run on port 80, which is recommended if you do ever try to use it in production systems, obviously, because lots of people block anything but port 80. You can do that, it's quite easy. So it's now running localhost port 2403. And there it is there. So that's the default landing page. It's just front-end file stuff, so you can actually use this as a HTML server if you feel like it. You can throw Angular.js and other stuff in there and actually use that to serve web pages. What we're going to do is we're going to skip straight to the dashboard system that Deployed has, which is here. So you can actually lock this down as well with a session key. I'm not going to bother for the moment, but that's easy to do. So adding a new resource collection, it's as easy as going add collection. We'll get one called, does anyone have any ideas? Sessions, speakers? Yeah, we'll do that. So we'll go sessions. Comes up. All we have to do now is add properties to the collection. Pretty straightforward. So we'll add a string property of session name. We'll say that that's required. We'll add another one of topic. That'll do. Maybe we'll add a runtime in minutes. And we'll add an object just for why not. So there we go. So basically now Deployed's created a collection called sessions. It's got those different column types: session name, topic, runtime, minutes, and details, which is an object. So now we can add data straight in the system as well. I'm not sure how I did that. I must have pressed enter a bunch of times. So session name, topic, that'll do. Runtime in minutes, we'll say 40. Details, we can open this up and just add any kind of JavaScript standard sort of JSON object stuff that we want. So we can go, description, blah, 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 maybe excerpt. Blah. There you go. So now that's created that data record straight within Deployed, within that collection we've created. And we can actually now go to our local host and do a simple get command just in the browser. And there it is there. So full get REST call, really easy. If you want to test stuff and prototype stuff, it's just super simple to get started. And again, with the events, we can do other cool stuff as well. Perhaps, we don't want people to be able to get this data, so we can just go cancel. You are not allowed. And you can pass it in the HTTP exception code. And it comes back empty, so it won't work anymore. Get rid of that. Works again. So we'll create another resource. We'll create one called speakers. Name. We'll go bio. And that'll do. So we'll create a secondary resource called speakers. Name and biography, pretty straightforward. Put me in there. I am a JavaScript developer. I no longer like .NET. There we go. So now we've got two collections. We've got our speakers, we've got our sessions collection. If, for example, say we wanted to now do that get call and get all of the sessions, but also get the speakers information as well for each session, perhaps we could do something like this. So for sessions, we could add a new property. We'll add one called speaker ID. We'll go back and we'll update our record. Not sure what all these other empty ones are in. I've got a feeling I might have created this one once before. We'll get the speaker ID. So now my session record has my speaker ID against it. And so we'll write we can write an event in here to basically go off and get the speaker information for every session. So just for ease of use, and because if I do it by hand, I'll probably mistype the code. So you can actually go into this API section here, and deployed automatically goes and pumps out these sample calls that you can make to the system. So you can easily copy and paste these if you're trying to do tests or whatever else you're trying to do. It's a good starting point. So what we'll do here is we'll copy this speakers get. We'll go back into sessions, into the events, and in here we'll go speakers.get. We'll pass in the first parameter. You can always pass in an object that you want to search upon. So we're speakers.get speaker ID, I think I called it, is equal to, no, that's not right. ID, this dot speaker ID. No? Oh. There we go. So basically now what we've got is within the sessions get event, we're asking the system to then, for every record, this always refers to the current record in deployed. For this current record, go off and fetch the speaker's information where that speaker ID is equivalent to the speaker ID for the session. So now we should be able to go straight back into here. A bit hard to read that. Not sure what all those empty records are, but you can see it there. So essentially it's brought back the record for the session, and it's also brought back, has it brought back my name? No, it hasn't. Whoops. Sorry? In here? Oh, it should still spit it out though onto the screen. Oh, the reason being, sorry, if we're going to actually assign it to the record coming back 4 sessions, we actually have to do that. We can't just make the call and let it go nowhere. So we'll do this awful thing. And then we'll go this dot speaker info is equal to result. Obviously we've got, I'm not sure what these empty records are, but there we go. So it's brought back my speaker information for that individual session. Just let's rid of some of these. Demos never go well, do they? Weird. I think perhaps I might have sat on the enter key earlier. There we go. So there you can see, so it's brought back our session information with my speaker info attached to it as a speaker info object. So it's just JSON. You can then go and use that within any website, whatever it is you happen to be doing. So that's all pretty straightforward. We can actually then go into, refresh this.
Because you put it sections and your authentication is probably storing sections in order.
Could be as well, yeah. It's probably a bad choice of terminology on my part. So again, the DPD stuff, the deployed stuff, we can actually go in and go, well, we want to use this in our website. We want to access this API, not just within deployed, but externally as well. So we can do something like, we'll just copy and paste this again. So here I've written a test HTML file. All it's got in it is a script link to the dpd.js library running on localhost. We'll just throw this straight in. We're not going to do anything fancy with it. So it should do the same thing that doing a standard old REST call does, within the browser. So we should be able to log this back up. There it is there. So it's all JSON. You can spit it out. You can do whatever you like with it. You can easily edit this stuff on the fly. Again, like if we were to go into here and add another property to this, and we were to call it a new property. I think you're right. I think that was a bad choice of collection name. That. And we'll go, this is my new property. Then we don't need to make any code changes. We can just go straight back into our test file. And there it is there. So it is a really simple, really easy way to create APIs. And even if you're not going to use it in a production system, it is still quite new. It's quite fresh, obviously. But even if you're not going to use it in a production system, it is extremely useful to have as a prototyping tool to sort of design out your APIs and work out what you're going to do with it. To use it as an intermediate sort of solution up until, perhaps your API has been built in Node or PHP or whatever it is you happen to be using. So it's just a really useful tool. I think that's about it for me. So unless anybody has any questions.